Today we're looking at Benjamin Šeško's Premier League options and saying goodbye to a Premier League legend. I'm Matt from FourFourTwo, and here's what's on our feed. Let's begin with Benjamin Šeško and his Premier League options, of which it seems there are two. I think you guys knew that already. Manchester United or Newcastle. First off, both of them can do with him tactically. Šeško seems to fit this mould of the number 9, the physical target man who's definitely the focal point of an attack, can bring others into play, can get on the end of crosses. It's very in this 𝗘𝗫𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏 kind of style. Now, at the moment, according to reports, Manchester United are his favoured option, which is a little bit interesting, given that Newcastle United are the ones with not just any European football, but with Champions League football next season. However, Manchester United are our new look, let's call it that. They freshened up. Cunha is in, 𝗦𝗶𝗴h is in, Rashford is out. It looks like 𝗕𝗫𝗓𝗍𝗏 is leaving. Potentially 𝗦𝗶𝗴h are going to go as well. There's an argument to be made without European football. United are going to have a better season because, well, they're going to have less distractions. They're going to be playing fewer games. They're going to be fresher to hit the Premier League hard on the weekend. To be honest, a club the size of Manchester United are never too far away from having a positive season and getting back into European football. Now, I say this with the most recent season being the perfect example. United finished 15th, was it? 14th? 15th? Very poor by their standards. However, they've then gone into the summer, still had enough money, enough wage budget, enough pull to bring in 𝗕𝗏𝗏 and Cunha, both of whom played for teams that finished above Manchester United in the league table. And 𝗕𝗏𝗏 especially has been on the up and up and up with Brentford, who are on the up and up. So the fact that they can do that just goes to show you that sooner or later, United will have another good season and get back into European football. Now, obviously Newcastle will do the same as well, but it just seems like that isn't necessarily a factor for Cesko or for any other player, that United don't have European football this season. Because I think it's very, very achievable to think that they might have it next season onwards. Like, United putting together a good campaign, finishing in Europe. What's that, the top 8, the top 7, top 8, maybe winning a cup? It's not completely unthinkable. As for Newcastle, though, it basically all hinges on the 𝗕𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓 deal. We know this. We know that there's a lot of talk about the Swede leaving, especially for Liverpool. But look, I think it kind of works for and against Newcastle. If 𝗕𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓 leaves, they're getting rid of a player who doesn't want to be at the club. That's good. Cesko comes in, and he's a good replacement. That's also very good. And for those of you saying, oh, he hasn't been as good, may I remind you that 𝗕𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓's numbers weren't exactly spectacular. He didn't exactly do that well at Dortmund. At Real Sociedad, he had okay seasons, but before coming to the Premier League, certainly at the time, I think it was about 70-odd million that Newcastle signed 𝗕𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓 from Sociedad for. He wasn't a £70 million player at the time. Certainly wasn't putting up the numbers. So there's an argument to say that Cesko could be the next 𝗕𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓. Certainly they have similar playing styles, and I think Cesko could benefit from Eddie Howe's system just as much as 𝗕𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓 did. The problem is that they're not going to sign Cesko until 𝗕𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓 leaves, until they know they need a replacement. But once 𝗕𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓 has left, RB Leipzig, who are going to be selling Benjamin Šeško, now know that they've got 120 million in the bank. They might not have it all at once, like I'm aware that costs are spread out over the course of a few seasons, but they will know that Newcastle are in a financial position to spend a lot of money, because whether it's this summer in one chunk, which I highly doubt, or over the next few years, they will be getting 120 million, maybe plus a few add-ons from Liverpool, which then will push the price a little bit further for Cesko. It's a complicated one for both sides, but yeah, I would say that the reason Cesko probably would want Manchester United is, look, as much as you want to talk about the last decade being poor, historically, they are a bigger club in Premier League terms, in English football terms, as success terms, than Newcastle are. As for where he fits in at Manchester United, actually, I feel like he'd be the main striker ahead of Matheus Cunha. I know Cunha can play centre forward. I don't see Cunha dropping deeper and taking over the number 10 role from Bruno Fernandes. But yeah, there's definitely options to be had. And like I said, when you haven't got European football and you can play one game, in the Premier League, maybe 2 games per week at certain periods throughout the season, being able to switch between 2 players like that is unbelievably good. On to one player moving into the Premier League potentially from one who's just left, and it's Heung-min's son, and this will hurt Spurs fans. It certainly hurt a lot of the players. I don't know if you saw the videos of Son playing his final game for the club after 10 years. It was against Newcastle in a pre-season friendly in South Korea. A very, very fitting way for him to end his time in the Premier League, in his home country. There were tears. There were tears to be had. But even the Newcastle players were joining in like the goodbye on the pitch. And I think it actually works. Like, no team wants to see one of their legendary players leave. No fans want to see one of their legendary players leave. Never mind all the teammates. James Maddison posted like a really nice 3-minute video in tribute to Son. But it kind of makes sense in the same way that it made sense when Harry Kane left, when Ange joined the club. Harry Kane leaving was such a point of discussion every single transfer window for Spurs for so many years. And when he finally left, Spurs reinvested the money, and it felt like a changing of the guard is maybe a bit too strong, but it felt like a point to go, right, we're starting afresh. The legacy from the old guard is out, Ange is in. Obviously, here we are 2 years later, and the same thing's happened again. The manager's changed, but now Thomas Frank is in. Spurs have made some good signings. They're looking to the future, and it feels like a really good time for Son to say, this is the end of that era. This is the end of the last decade of Tottenham Hotspur, and then he's leaving. And there's a few who have been left over from, I guess, the time Son joined. Ben Davies is the only one actually that comes to mind. And it feels like it's a good time for him to go. Heung-min's son lifts the Europa League in his last competitive match for Spurs. He consolidates himself as a legend. He's definitely a Premier League legend for all that he's done in the last 10 years. It just seems to make sense. And actually, talking about that legacy, the amount of goal contributions he's had since joining the club is third in the Premier League, only behind Mo Salah and Harry Kane. That is immense consistency over 10 years. I think there's 4 Player of the Month awards in there, 1 Premier League Golden Boot, over 100 assists for Spurs, over 150 goals, over 400 appearances for them in all competitions. When Jurgen Klopp says that's the one regret in his career, not signing Heung-min's son, you're a pretty good player. I would genuinely put him in the top 5 wingers of all time in the Premier League. For what Son has done, for his contributions, for the way he's played, yeah, maybe top 5, maybe 5th. 4th or 5th best Premier League left winger of all time. Let me know in the comments where you'd place him. And talking of placing or replacing, it's how does Spurs replace him? And it's a rather unusual one because they can replace him in the starting lineup with Wilson, 𝗕𝗫𝗍𝗫. Thomas Frank was even talking about Brennan Johnson switching sides from the right-hand side to the left. But it's not just positionally they need to replace Heung-min's son. It's contribution-wise. It's the goals. If let's take 𝗘𝗫𝗍𝗫, for example, if 𝗘𝗫𝗍𝗫 can come into left wing and help 𝗕𝗫𝗍𝗫𝗍𝗫 Solanke score more goals, that's fine. They've replaced the goals that Son was bringing to the team. But if not, it's a really, really big reliance that they've had on Son in the last few years that they'll need to replace, whether that's from the left winger, whether it's from helping Solanke score more, whether it's buying another number 10, especially with Maddison now injured, that is going to help score more goals. They need to replace more than just another number in starting 11. They need to replace his output. They'll need to get back into the transfer market. Spurs don't exactly do things quickly, let's say. They threatened to do things quickly only in the summer with Morgan Gibbs-White, and look what happened there. That slipped through their fingers. 𝗕𝗫𝗍𝗫𝗍𝗫 would be perfect in terms of playing central and left. It looks like he's more inclined to join Arsenal. But yeah, that's basically what is going to be going down and what needs to be done at Spurs. There was a really, really good post from 𝗕𝗫𝗏𝗏𝗏 tagging Spurs, saying make it happen on his Instagram, and it's a bronze statue of Spurs lifting the Europa League. And honestly, Spurs don't have too many legends in the Premier League era that maybe would deserve a statue. There's nothing kind of Sergio Aguero, Kevin De Bruyne level at Manchester City. Having said that, 10 years at the club, a meaningful contributor over those 10 years, and having lifted the Europa League trophy as captain, maybe he's got more of an argument to have a bronze statue outside of the stadium than Harry Kane does. And that's really saying something. And to finish off though, we'll do something that's quite amusing, definitely to loads of you in the comment section on Instagram, under a post from Porto, who announced their new signing of Luuk de Jong, because they announced it before a match in some sort of throwback to when nobody knew that a transfer was happening, and the comments are ripping Fabrizio Romano. You sleeping on this one, he knew nothing about it, this, that and the other. In the world of transfers, where everyone seems to know what's happening before the player even knows, I found this quite funny. And it is quite cool. It is quite cool that you go as a Porto fan to the game and you think, oh, we're going to watch a pre-season game, and then yeah, a brand new signing gets unveiled in Luuk de Jong. I think that's really, really cool. So yeah, that was everything that was on our feed for this week. But before we go, one more thing. This is the 442 season preview. It's our latest magazine. It's out now in stores. You can go and buy it. I've even written a little thing about my football club in there. See if you can tell who that is. And there's loads of other bits in the magazine detailing the preview of the brand new Premier League season, Championship season, I should say, and loads more cool things about the upcoming campaign of English football. So yeah, make sure you check that out now. You get 2 magazines in there as well. As for right this second though, you can hit that subscribe button, give us a like, and drop some comments down below. Like I said, is Heung-min Son a top 5 Premier League left winger of all time? And where do you think Benjamin Šeško will end up? That's all from me for today though, and I'll see you in the next one.